Hey everybody, welcome back to Finding the Upside. In honor of Women's History Month and International Women's Day that we celebrated in March, I wanted to do something a little different for today's episode. Over the past 3 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing incredible women, entrepreneurs, professionals, friends, each with their own journey, challenges, and moments of courage. And what struck me when I was listening back to these conversations was something very powerful. Every single story highlighted the importance of women supporting women, whether it's friendship, entrepreneurship, or finding the courage to step into your own leadership. We don't do it alone. We need others. So today's episode is a special compilation of 3 powerful conversations with women who courageously shared their experiences about connection, resilience, and believing in themselves. These moments remind us why empowerment isn't just a buzzword, but rather something we create for each other. Let's start with something that many women underestimate the importance of: the power of friendship and connection. I'd like to welcome everyone to the podcast and introduce Lisa Bushman. Say hello.
Hello.
Mary Jean Carino.
Hi.
And Julie Coop.
Hi, everyone.
So just to give you some background, as I said, we all grew up together. Julie and Mary Jean and I have known each other since we were 8. So nearly 50 years of friendship. And Lisa, Mary Jane, Julie, and I all went to high school together. So what is that, Lisa? 38 years? Something like that? Yeah, kind of crazy. Yeah. For real. So our topic today, why I wanted them to come into the studio and talk with me is a lot of people these days are definitely having struggles with making friendships, keeping friendships, and feeling connected. And that is because of what we've gone through in the last 3 years. But it also is, I think, and we'll get all of your thoughts on it, I think as you get older and your life changes, I think a lot of women do struggle to keep connections, and their life changes, their life is busy, maybe they have children, they're working a lot, maybe they don't, maybe they change careers, and things change and it's harder to make friends. So we're talking about that today because all of us have had some experience, and I also wanted to share that all of us have stayed in touch for a long time, but we really reconnected over the pandemic, right?
Yes, that's when it happened.
So I'd love to ask each of you just to make a commentary about how our friendship has kind of grown through the years and what the nature of our friendship has been, what it's become, and what it stands, how it looks today. Julie, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, that's a lot to discuss. So I think, friendships have a life of their own.
Yeah.
Right? So, we forged a really strong bond when we were young, right? We spent a lot of time together, which was great. But, as we got older and we got out of high school, we weren't as connected anymore, right? Because we each went off to our own schools. We were busy trying to
we went to different
start
colleges.
Careers, start families. But I feel like that connection that we had never really went away. We kind of put it to the side for a while, right? So I think friendships, have that kind of life of their own.
Yeah, very true. That's a good way to characterize it. Mary Jean, what do you think?
There's something about the friendships you make when you're young that there's something different about them. And I think it might be because we were in school for so many years together. Mm-hmm. We knew each other's families. We used to go to each other's houses. We played sports together. Mm-hmm. So when you reconnect, there's still so much familiarity. So I think that when we decided to start getting together during COVID, there was this familiarity, and like when you have that, you also feel like you can really be yourself.
Yes, that's a really good point. Lisa, what do you think?
Well, we went to high school together, but we
Right.
didn't go in the same circles.
Right. That's
we
true.
Were friendly.
Good point.
That's
we
true.
were friendly,
That's
but
true.
we weren't,
Yeah.
you did all your after school
Yeah.
home things with your friends in your neighborhood, and I wasn't part of that.
Right.
Which is all fine. But you and I had ran into each other when your son was playing football at Wayne Hills. I was coaching field hockey.
Yes.
And you recognized each other. And we did talk about getting together. And then COVID happened. And that didn't happen. We didn't get together. And then when I ran into the two of you when we had to wear masks outside at a football game. I was
Yes.
taking tickets and you two came walking by.
Yes.
And then we conversed after that. And then exchanged numbers, and then joined your group for.
I thought you were a student.
It was the mask. All you see was my eyes.
Yeah.
The hat. Right. Well, so and then so. I feel like some of your very close friends now, as opposed to all those years in between. If I ran into you in town once or twice, that was a lot.
True. But do you feel the same that we kind of that you feel like there was a familiarity, even though we didn't have the youth? We didn't go to grammar school together, middle school, but we did. Did you feel that same?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and just
we'll have a lot in common from the school, even though it was so long,
shared experiences.
ago.
Yeah,
we could converse on that.
Well, and the thing is too is like to really characterize this and explain it, like we were not always, as you said, we were not always in touch in the same ways at the same frequency through all the years, right? Like we kind of, even in high school, Mary Jean, like we were in the same circles, and then you did the different activities, and you kind of went, we were still friends, but you went with a different circle of friends, and then we all went off to college, but then reunions, we would reconnect, right? Sometimes we would meet for lunch, right? You and I think through college, we're still pretty tight.
Yeah.
And hung out. But we had like ebbs and flows to our frequency. And then, like you said, you described, being that I still lived in the same town.
Yes. Right.
And we had that familiarity. Same house. And, that reconnection, I think also was something that was, I don't know, for me, very like, it's definitely familiar, but like energizing. It just felt comfortable and felt like, familiar. I mean, like we've talked about this ourselves when we do gather, like, why is it that we're so, it feels like so natural. And you stated it's connection, but I think also what either one of you shared, I don't remember who said it, but how you can be yourself. You can show up as yourself is a big part of it. And I think a lot of people, not just women, but definitely women, don't have that in their friendships. And I think that's so important to be able to have that space where you can be authentic. So I cherish that about our group. And I love to be able to also talk about old times, these girls talk about things and I'm like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that person or whatever. But yeah, I think you're right. So, COVID, I think, was also an interesting time because we all were not as busy, right? And I think we committed to, and you fell in pretty good. Yeah. We were doing it, every couple weeks? We were getting together outside, and then
every 2 weeks
we
at
were.
first.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were. We did that for quite a while, a couple of years. And then when we met up with you and we brought you in to our little supper club. I think we were still doing that pretty regularly. Obviously, once everything started to change, everybody gets busy again. But I think we've done a pretty good job of keeping that consistency. And I'm just curious. I look forward to our nights. What do you look forward to about it?
Well, just connecting with some new refound friends, and just sitting around the table and BSing.
Yeah.
And we're all in different lines of work, and I know you guys talk about your lines of work are more on the same level than what mine is. But I like listening to it because I kind of brings me back to when I worked for State Farm, more of a corporate situation, whereas I work in the school.
Yeah, you had that. Your second act is now you've transitioned
I've been
into
out of it a long
else.
time, but I enjoy listening to your work woes and accomplishments and stories and whatnot.
What about you, Mary Jane? What is your
I
thing?
think as a professional woman with children who are grown but finding their way in the world, like there's a lot of stress. And the more senior you get in a company, the harder it is to find peers who you can really relate to or share that transparently with.
Yeah.
And so I really look forward to just being able to say, this is really stressing me out. This is going on at work, with people who understand that and can listen without judgment and give feedback, or just even say, yeah, I get what you're dealing with. You know what I mean? So for me, I have some stress around my daughter being in school and getting out, and there aren't very many people I can talk to about that, but I can talk to you guys about that, and you can listen without judgment and empathize, and it's helpful.
Yeah, and you brought up an important point. Like at work, I remember those days when I was in corporate, you had your work friends, but it's just different. I mean, I have some very close friends that I am still friends with that I developed relationships at work. And I know you guys do too as well, right? But, sometimes you don't want to share things that are that personal, or you can't vent in the same way. So I would agree that that's such an important part of it. And for me as well, like, stuff with my own son, with challenges with college and things like that. So it's great to be able to share that and ask for support.
Yeah.
Julie, what about you? Anything?
Yeah, what I appreciate is that I feel like it's a very safe space, right, for us to share and to help each other. And I feel like I can always call any one of you or text you and say, I need this, or I'm struggling with this. And any one of you would be like, okay, no problem, I'm there, right? And I think what I enjoy about the nights that we do get together is that we really take the time to talk about a variety of things. It could be anything. It could be professional. It could be family. It could be just what the latest product is out there on the market that we're using.
That we're liking and loving.
For everyone, right? And, or just enjoy, like we order different kinds of food and try different things. And I think that's
we got Lisa
really fun.
to eat Thai food.
That's right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that was a
Got
challenge.
you to go out of your comfort
That was
zone.
my first one.
Yeah. So, I think that's really fun. And it's supportive and fun and just heartwarming all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like you walk away. When I go home, I have a drive, right, to get home.
Yeah.
So when I get home, I just, the drive is just so satisfying because, I play it over in my head.
Yeah.
And it's
Same.
fun.
Yeah.
That's
Well, the safe space issue is so important because we also talk about topical issues that are happening in our country and the world, and there aren't a lot of safe spaces to talk about that. We're often aligned, but sometimes we have different points of view, and I think we have really good. It certainly scratches my itch for conversations about social issues, economic issues.
And I agree
political issues.
wholeheartedly. And I also think it's because we can have that, you're right, it's a safe space, but we can have that deep thinker kind of conversation and, also challenge each other, about what we might believe or think or state and a lot of us, I think, I definitely believe this is true about me. Through some of our discussions, I've changed perspective on certain things, just not because you said you need to think this way or you should think, just because it made me think about it.
Yeah, I
sure.
think you're great at doing that, challenging me on a lot of things, and it has changed my perspective on certain things or made me think differently about the topic and the subject matter, which is great because I think you can't be closed-minded, right? You have to be able to listen and to process,
right,
and to grow as a person, right? And I think those conversations do help us do that.
Yeah. While listening to that, what stands out to me is how powerful it is when women create spaces for each other to be real. Because the truth is, not every woman has that. And sometimes when we don't find that support externally, we have to create something for ourselves. And for some women, that creation shows up in a really tangible way, which is building something from scratch that's yours, taking a risk, and redefining what's possible. Listen to this next section in Lisa's story.
I stayed at home for 13 years, and once they got to the age where I was like, all right, I'm ready to get back into the workforce. I was like, what am I marketable for? And I've been out of the workforce for so many years. What was really, going to have a nice balance that I could still be able to get my kids to and from school, to and from their activities. My husband travels a lot for business. So, something that really made sense for our family.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on my back deck, and I grew up in Garfield, and I remember the ice cream truck always coming.
Yes, I have those memories as well.
Yes, and my son, particularly Thomas, is a huge ice cream lover. And when we go and visit my mom and my mother-in-law, the ice cream truck always comes.
Love it.
So the town that we live in is very large. And he said to me, Mom, how come the ice cream truck never comes in our neighborhood? And it was like an aha moment for me. And I was like, you know what? You're right. It doesn't. And then my wheels started churning. And then I said, you're right. The ice cream truck doesn't come. Why doesn't it come? Well, times have changed.
Yes.
Summertime growing up by us, it was whoever was on your street.
Yep.
That was your summer camp.
Everybody was out and about.
Everyone was out and about. 6 o'clock every day, the ice cream truck came.
Yep.
And if you were lucky enough that your parents had, a little extra money, you were able to take advantage of getting an ice cream. And it always brought joy and happiness. And I just always, saw my son's reaction even when he heard the ice cream bell. So I thought about it, and it just gained velocity. My husband came home from work, and I said, I think I'm going to start an ice cream truck. And he said, you're out of your mind.
I was going to say, what was his reaction?
My husband. My husband is a great guy. But I've had a lot of ideas over, ideas over the course of our time together. And he goes, Lisa, what do you mean? I said, no, I think I'm going to start an ice cream truck.
I love it.
And he didn't take me seriously. So then I started researching at night, and I just started researching the market. I started researching the trucks. Well, there are no ice cream trucks that really are readily available. And if they are, food trucks are very hot. That whole industry, I didn't realize until, starting to do research. Vans in itself, a lot of people are, buying vans, converting them into these major campers, or they're converting them into these major high-end food trucks. So they were really hard to find. So again, I've been out of the workforce for 13 years.
Yeah.
I haven't had any liquid income.
Yeah.
And we really were just making ends meet.
Yeah.
So I had to put together a business proposal
plan?
Yes, a business proposal for my husband.
So that he could fund it?
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. Good.
Yes, because I had to sell him on the idea.
Yep, understood.
Because we're using money that we need.
Yes.
My husband comes home from work. I got dressed in my corporate attire that I had to dust off in the closet. And I made a pitch.
Oh, wow.
My husband came home, and I said to him, my husband's name is Enrique. I said, we have a meeting. And he said, at the kids' school? I don't have it on my calendar because he has everything on his calendar. He's a type A personality. And I said, no, you have it with me. And he looked at me and I made him sit down and I told him I need $20,000. And I presented to him my business proposal. He says, well, Lisa, we really don't have an extra $20,000 for you to go and get an ice cream truck.
So how did that turn out?
I just kept on selling him. And then finally I told him, you just need to give me a chance. And just give me a chance. I know that this could be something that I could balance the family, and I know that this could be profitable.
Yeah. Wow. So there's so much goodness in there that I want to extract and unpack, because I think that your position and your journey is one that's very similar for a lot of women that get married and are out of the workforce and then have the choice of, okay, how do I make my way back in? Right. And then what you also touched on is the flexibility, right?
Correct.
Having a position that allows that. And I think, our society is still struggling with that. The system is broken for that, because for women to be able to have a family and have an income to contribute, it's very challenging in the corporate world to find that. And although some things are changing now, hopefully, where the demand is people want flexibility, so the corporate world has to adjust in some way, I think that's why a lot of people choose entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
And you also, what you mentioned about the hesitancy and the barriers that you face, not only convincing your husband that you wanted to do it, but also, or that you could do it, but also the barrier to the capital to start it. And what some of the questions that I want to ask about that later on are to bring that out is that's sometimes the block for people to be able to start a business.
Absolutely.
How do I start it? Right. And then gaining support from your spouse or your family or whomever. So, a lot of those things are common barriers that people face. And I like when people share that, because it makes people understand that there's a way. Women, there's a way. And what I love about so first off, just so people know, she doesn't just have an ice cream truck. She's a brand, okay? The Sweet Ice Queen is a brand. And you've built that, and it's a whole persona, which I love. And it shows that you had the belief and the drive that this was something that you could do, you wanted to do, and you could do. And it shows in you even telling that story. So I think, what would you say to people that have some kind of idea and dream and face those same or similar barriers that you did?
Well, even, going back to, just being out of the workforce for 13 years, I was looking for jobs, and I was looking for jobs, and I would, apply for jobs, and they were entry-level jobs.
Yep.
And I knew that I had more experience, and I knew that I had more to give, but I also knew that there was such a gap in how long I was out of the workforce that I was, I would go back to my husband and say, oh, I have this interview. And he would look and he said, Lisa, like, those are entry-level positions. You were a director somewhere. Like, that's not worth it for you. But then those other spots, were beyond, and I wouldn't be able to still have a work-life situation for my kids. So, so that's what, going back to that gap.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, I have so much experience in both social work and in corporate America. How can I blend those two together?
I love that. Lisa's story is such a powerful reminder that it's never too late to start again, to create something that works for this stage of your life, wherever you are. But sometimes the hardest part isn't what we want to build or what we build. It's what we have to rebuild within ourselves. And that's where this next story takes us.
I am a strong, powerful professional woman with a doctorate degree, and I was allowing somebody to take my money and be abusive towards me physically, emotionally, financially. Oh no.
Yeah.
And I was telling other people, oh no, you can't allow that. But I was allowing it myself. So I really hated myself for a while. And I had to forgive myself before I could move on and before I could do anything else. And that is so, so important. Whatever you have to do to forgive yourself, you have to take that step. But if I had known all these horrible things were going to happen in that relationship, there's no way I would have done it. But if I hadn't been in that relationship, I probably wouldn't be helping other people with their confidence and their grace. I would just be living my very cool life that I had.
Yeah, so I'm thank you for saying that because I think that's one of the big takeaways, right? I never want to characterize that for someone else, but I hear that from other people who have had not the same journey, but similar journey in terms of a negative circumstance actually becoming part of the path that led them to somewhere else, even though in the moment it was bad.
Right.
So I love that you can embrace that and own that as part of your journey, and I think that that's an important message that everyone kind of should reflect on because it really does bring you to another place. And I agree that I think showing the whole life, we would be so paralyzed saying, not doing that, no way. So I'm happy to hear that that's was your journey as well because I think that a lot of people could resonate that can resonate with a lot of people this in the same way to realize that. So I'm curious in terms of and again, this is like what I love about what you do is you have such different activities, right? With the Queen and with being an attorney, although you've said that you're using your gifts with helping your clients or guiding them or what have you. So, but in terms of becoming a leader and being a business owner, can you talk about a lot of women, I think, have struggled and faced a lot of barriers and challenges to become a leader. Can you share a little bit about your journey? Do you have experiences? I hear from a lot of people that say they have to work harder to gain respect. Could you share what your experience was like?
My experience was a little bit different. I really didn't have to work harder to gain respect by being a woman because I was in a situation where I have grown up in a household where there were lawyers.
Yeah.
So, just by virtue of having that legal talk around me constantly, I was able to talk the talk immediately upon my exit of law school. And really, even before that, I did all of the mock trial kinds of things when I was growing up and all of those things. And so I really didn't have that problem. And I credit my parents significantly for the confidence that I have. Because they were always building me up no matter what I wanted to do. If it was something that was going to positively influence my life, they were like, go for it. We're 100% behind you. You can do anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do, and nothing can hold you back. And I am actually, which is really kind of rare because I'm from the South, I'm actually a third generation college graduate on my mom's side of the family. My grandmother got a business degree in the 1940s.
Wow.
So, that's really unusual. So I think I have a little bit of a different circumstance, but I can relate to the others that have a different circumstance than me with the confidence to be a leader from that time in my life when I hated on myself
Mm.
and from that time in my life where I didn't feel good enough. And I think the not good enough feelings come across in just about every single person in some way or another. And when those not good enough feelings, enter, you have to really do something about them. And there a lot of this lesson comes in my spiritual journey as well because I'm a lawyer, and so people give me credibility just because I have a law degree. Like, that seems silly to me, especially on the spiritual side,
Hmm.
because it's not about that. It's not about the education. It doesn't matter. It's about the experiences and it's about being able to, move forward. So I think for me, being a leader kind of came a little bit naturally. But then I had that situation where I wasn't leading anybody, including myself. And I had to really like learn how to feel good enough as I was. Not good enough when I lose 15 pounds, not good enough when I make $1 million, not good ugh when I, fix my hair a certain way or whatever. It's really feeling good enough right now for whatever you're doing in the moment and not worrying about what somebody else thinks. That is really the biggest thing because I was like, oh my gosh, what's everybody going to say if I get divorced? How can I do that? I just got married and we had almost a decade long relationship, but we were only married for 15 months. And, I was embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
That was embarrassing that I couldn't make that work. But I had to get over the what's everybody going to say um, situation for me to be able to move forward. And I think that that's really what real leadership comes as. It's not that you don't care, it's that you don't care for yourself. You care what they feel and you care what feelings you're giving to them, but you're not taking it on for yourself. It's okay for somebody not to like me. There's tons of people that don't like me. That's okay. I'm okay with that. And there's people I don't like too, and that's okay. It's allowing the feelings not to become your own feelings about yourself. And I really think that has a lot to do with leadership.
Thank you for sharing that, because leadership is being able to look within and develop ourselves and have that confidence. So I love that how you articulated your journey, even though you had that unbelievable support and family structure and ability to build that foundation of confidence. It really is a journey internally, no matter what situation you're in, that you have to go inward to develop that confidence and maintain it. Because that's something that I think you just shared, that you can have it, but boy, if you get in a situation where it can question it, you really have to be doing that inner work to be able to come to, no matter what you face, be able to have that confidence and bring that to, and that love for yourself. Because if we don't love ourselves, we can't care and support others, and that's what leadership is. So I love that you shared that.
That's not to say that you shouldn't be holding yourself accountable because you absolutely should. You have to be accountable for your actions. And I think that's another really important role or important part of leadership as well. Is you
100%.
take accountability for the stuff that you do wrong. I do wrong stuff all the time, but I'm okay to say, you know what, that was wrong. I shouldn't have said that way. I shouldn't have done that thing. I'm sorry, or I will work on doing that differently in the future. So I think accountability is really good. So just because we're working on not hating on ourselves doesn't mean we, get a pass for everything we do. We have to take accountability as well.
Absolutely. And it is a foundation or a tenet of leadership for sure, to be accountable. And it really do that examination of what's my part in this, right? So
Yes.
developing that confidence, but and not just as a leader, just as a human being, right? Is
Right.
being able to reflect on our own behavior and actions and when we could do better, but still loving ourselves, right? Not beating
Yes.
ourselves, improving and evolving as a human. I love that. Well, I hope you enjoyed these conversations, and as I listen to them, a few things stand out. Women empower each other in many different ways, sometimes through friendship, creating spaces where we can be honest and vulnerable. Sometimes through entrepreneurship and business, taking risks and building something new. And sometimes it's through leadership, learning to believe in ourselves even when the path isn't clear, and demonstrating to other women that they can do it too. Women's History Month is often about celebrating the icons and pioneers who came before us, but it's also about recognizing the everyday women around us who are doing powerful things in their own lives and impacting others, supporting each other, encouraging each other, and reminding each other of what's possible. So my question for you is this: who are the women in your life who lift you up? And how can you be that person for someone else? Because empowerment isn't just something we receive, it's something we create together for each other. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Finding the Upside. I'll see you next time.